The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Rib, the last day of this week, and we won't be on Monday because of a holiday. But I know CJ wants to get right into it because that is Spindle City Straight Talk's version of Karnak the Magnificent. He was talking about something.
And it happened.
On the morning show, and lo and behold, shortly after the show, it happened.
Yep. I was talking about the appointment of someone to the Elections Commission, and as the Elections Commissioner, and Ryan was appointed for 90 days, and he was sworn in the day of our show, which I thought was interesting. And Liz Camara, who is the former Elections Commissioner before Kelly, said that this was a big mistake by the mayor. And I agree it's a big mistake by the mayor. As a matter of fact, it's such a big mistake by the mayor that the Secretary of State's office has now had a complaint filed against the City of Fall River and the Elections Department because Angel Panteo, who's running for state rep in the 7th Bristol District, which is Alan Sylvia's district, turned in his nomination papers for verification, and about 3/4 of the signatures were rejected. Imagine that.
Wow.
3/4. Normally you get about 25, at the worst end, 50% of the signatures rejected. But when you're looking at 75%, there's a problem. Here's where the big problem is. Ryan should have recused himself. Why, might you ask? Ryan has worked regularly on Alan Sylvia's campaign, Linda Pereira's campaign, and numerous other campaigns. As an elections commissioner, he cannot have an opinion on who is right or who is wrong or who should be elected. And he is obviously exercising his opinion. I don't want to hear about First Amendment. I'm talking about his job. Okay? He went around telling people that he had this job before he even had it. Before Kelly even died, he was already jumping into the grave with her. So I have a problem with this. And I know several other people do. And as I said, I spoke with Liz Camara about this the day before our show. I spoke to her at Stop and Shop. And she's already said she will not come back to bail out the city. She will not come back to help out. So, Paul, this is what you've done. You've exercised, as in like an exorcism.
Exorcism? Wow.
The help that you may have had to run a valid election. Now, this may not be a valid election, and this is a state and federal election. And it may be called into question because Ryan is the elections commissioner, because you chose the wrong person. You didn't, investigate it. Plus, guess this one, we don't have an elections commission.
What a surprise.
He's so worried about appointing all his friends that he failed to appoint an elections commission.
Yes, we have to get into that after you get through with this, because obviously one of our regular viewers has they know I'm now building up the various names we can give him because he's multifaceted. He can multitask. He can be the divider-in-chief, and the Pope of patronage and many other names. We have a whole litany of lists, but we have a viewer who wants to put in a name or characterize it, so we'll cover that a little bit. But you're right. And the thing is that to be the commissioner, you would assume, but then again, we all know what assume means when you break down assume. You would assume something as important as elections, that when someone leaves who's been there a while, and as you said, Liz Camara, but what happens now is you would assume that they put somebody with some experience in there, not fundamentally a newbie. But then again, what does that matter? We're dealing with the government, and it's like the reverse criteria from private industry. You have to be qualified to have a job in private industry, but in government, it's like you have to be unqualified
and kiss ass
and can't get any jobs anywhere else. That's why we have people, in government working that we need six people to screw in a light bulb. Then you got to hire a private contractor to actually screw the light bulb in after you hire the other 6 people. Because if it's bigger than a 60-watt bulb, they have to hire an electrical company. That's the way government operates. But
let me give you a little bit of rundown here. Liz Camara had 20 years experience in the elections office before she became the elections commissioner. She had to actually apply for the job of elections commissioner, and they rejected her application twice because they didn't consider her well qualified with 20 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they appointed Adam Chamberlain. Remember Adam?
Oh yes, Adam was and Adam Chamberlain's name came back up into the mix.
Yes,
because he's and Adam was a nice guy. Don't get me wrong. Adam was a nice guy.
Yep.
But he was politically connected, and
yes.
he moved around city halls, slid in from job to job. They tried to move him into that job, and his name came back into the mix, I believe, about city administrator.
That's right.
And I believe he's a town administrator somewhere.
Right, he's a town manager.
But the thing is that it's amazing how these names, they just resurrect them again. They rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
It's like Roto-Rooter hasn't cleaned out the pipe enough, so it's backing
So as
up.
you say, the weekend flush is never completely flushed, as you say every weekend. That's
Exactly.
the problem. We never can flush all this refuse out.
No. So as I was saying, Liz has had over 20 years experience in elections. She had applied twice. On the last time, they made her present a resume, a full resume, for her to be approved by the city council. And then she was approved. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, Kelly Sousa Young had a good 10 years experience before she was appointed. And when she was appointed, she didn't know it all. Just like Liz told me, when I was appointed, I didn't know it all. And when she retired, she came back and she helped out Kelly get on her feet with knowing where things are. And she actually came back and helped with a few elections. Now we've got Ryan, who's ostracized his staff, and he hasn't even been the director.
Wait a minute, he's got 10 minutes experience.
Exactly, and most of his experience was developed from being a poll worker. A poll worker.
That's not elections. That's just,
no. And he has about a year, plus or minus, in the elections office. And supposedly Kelly was teaching him everything. I had a long conversation with Kelly when Ryan was appointed to that office, and I told her, I said, if you're training him to take your place, I think that's a big mistake. I mean, I've been very vocal about the fact that I don't think he should have the job. But it wasn't my appointment. It was the mayor's appointment. And remember, he's so far up Paul's ass. He's so far up Linda's ass. He's so far up Alan's ass. I mean...
Yeah, because you kind of got to be objective.
Yeah.
I mean, you're actually legally, you're legally obligated to be neutral.
Right.
And that's problematic for somebody who is so deeply entrenched in the political campaigns of some of these people. So
right.
he was involved in, I have been told he was involved in Alan Sylvia's campaign. Mm-hmm. And I can't, I didn't know that. I wasn't involved, but I know he was involved in Linda's campaign.
Oh yeah, we know that.
And we know that for a fact. And, but I don't know, again, politics, rears its ugly head, and Coogan comes from the bastion of politics. He comes from the school department where everything is done. Nobody knows. The school department is autonomous. They have their own fiefdom. They appoint anybody they want. Nobody ever reviews anything. Nobody reviews nobody cares. And then we've seen what's happened. Ice House Guards and DCM, all these things. The government is a total disaster. And that is the reason that we have the problems that we have. in this community, because it's not about qualifications. That's what always upsets me when they begin to talk about, we got to pay them top dollar to get the best people, but we never get the best people, because the best people are making huge money in the private sector. If you're really good at what you do, you're going to go work in the private sector. You're not going to come in a place like Fall River where you're always under the gun, you got no money, you got to play Chinese checkers with things. You actually a tightrope walking on the illegal. It's not going to happen. And that's the problem. The problem is, and the thing is that politicians then try to convince us that we have to pay them top dollar, absolutely not. We pay everybody top dollar except the people who actually do work. The people who are working in City Hall making $35,000 collecting your bills and go to work every day, they get crap. But all the appointees, as that article said, if you want to be an administrator, you want to be an appointee, work in Fall River. And I mean, let's face it, Paul Coogan has made this an art form. And with that, I'll segue in to... I received a text from one of our viewers, and he said, no, here's another name we can give him. Since he loves to dance around controversial issues and doesn't hold himself accountable, we can also call him the dancer-in-chief.
No, Eddie Lambert has that.
That's true. Yeah, that's a very good point. Viewer, I don't believe you knew Eddie Lambert, but Eddie Lambert used to sing and dance for all the elderly people. But he also went on to say he practices Cooganomics. He's got that. So now we have Cooganomics, which is he doesn't have to, he doesn't care about anything. He just kicks the can down the road fundamentally. Because basically he spends money, doesn't plan, hands out hefty pay raises, and tells everybody to ask questions later.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good assessment of the way he's running the city.
I agree.
But he didn't include that he does do a thorough investigation of skateboard parks.
That's right.
And he puts on one hell of a movie.
Yes, he does.
You know, so you got.
And he hands out lots of certificates to kids.
He's like I said, he's Mr. Rogers.
Yep.
But
it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
a beautiful day.
Yeah, except not in that neighborhood. If you live in Corky Row, it's not a beautiful day in the neighborhood. But if you live in his neighborhood, it's a beautiful day. And that's the problem. Listen, is it different? They're going to accuse me now again. They're going to accuse us of picking on him all the time. Segues into another thing. I've been looking for this for a while, and this morning I knew we were going to be on this topic, so I looked at it. It's one of my favorite things. You know, they're trying to suppress, you only can have one opinion in this country. They cancel you. But that's not the way it's supposed to be in a democracy. But I had to get this from Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt, in case you people don't know, it's not Franklin, Theodore. A man who won a Medal of Honor as a soldier for charging up San Juan Hill, the man who established the National Park Service, and the man who ran the United States by his credo was a West African proverb, speak softly but carry a big stick. The United States was not messed with when Theodore Roosevelt was the president because he would take care of business. He was one of our greatest presidents. I think the two greatest presidents were Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt. But this is, I'm reading it, this isn't mine. This is what happened to Teddy Roosevelt. He as a colonel in the military, he criticized the president. So the editorial board of the Kansas City Times basically went on to condemn him and say he should stand by the president. He should be stood before a stone wall and shot for actually criticizing the president. And that's what the wokies and the Dems want you to do. You can't question anything they do, but that doesn't make a democracy, even if it's good. So he put together one of the most cogent responses to that ever, and I have to read it because these are his words, not mine. The president is merely the most important among a large number of public servants. He should be supported or opposed exactly to the degree which is warranted by his good or bad conduct, his efficiency or inefficiency in rendering loyalty, able, and disinterested service to the nation as a whole. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that there should be full liberty to tell the truth about his acts. And this means that it is exactly necessary to blame him when he does wrong and to praise him when he does right. Any other attitude in an American citizen is both base and servile. To announce that there must be no criticism of the president or that we are to stand by the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but it is morally treasonable to the American public.
That says it clearly.
You cannot say it better. Nobody could say it better than Teddy, the Rough Rider. You know? And I love him. He's the only president ever to have a boxing ring in the White House.
I know.
And he also brought the judo champion of Japan over to work out with him for a year. He was vitally savage and mentally civilized. But this is the thing. He wasn't a hypocrite. And he said, and he became the president of the United States. He didn't just talk the talk. He walked the walk. He went on to become the president. He criticized, and then he went on and he said, I'm going to show you the way I would do it. And this is what we need. Today's society is nothing, we get nothing but hypocrisy from these people. And then we get nothing but lies, and the media covers up for them. AOC marched on a picket line with Amazon employees. Now they were marching again because they formed a union. Guess what? I saw a union organizer on TV today that said, AOC didn't show up. All of a sudden, she disappeared. And no other politician showed up. Why? Because they're hypocrites. It's an election year. And they really didn't care about it. She stood on that picket line for optics. She took money from Bezos. She took money from everybody. And they all do. They're nothing but hypocrites. Let's look. AOC plays I'm the Hispanic ghetto dweller that made it good. Her father was an architect in Westchester, New York, one of the richest parts of New York.
Sounds like the ghetto to me.
She went to private schools her whole life and went to Boston University. So, you know, she's not one of the peers of her constituency.
You mean she's going to go to PS 134?
Look, just like Kamala, who said, I was on the bus. She lived in Canada most of her life, and she went to private schools. She was from another. They're all hypocrites. That's why we have to get back to what Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain said. Politicians are like diapers. You have to change them often and for the same reason. The reality is that we see what's going on in Fall River. Where is the talk of affordable housing? No, nowhere. We are crippling everybody. Everybody in the country is talking about the dramatic influence that this inflation is having on low-income, fixed-income people. We see Rhode Island doing things. We see everybody doing things. And Fall River, all they talk about is driving the rents up at market-rate housing. I think in that, and that's what they do. They're renovating the Superman building in Providence. They're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. It's been derelict for 10 years. So you know what they do? They do what all politicians do. They realize they can't make it into a fully commercial building, so they're going to make apartments.
Right.
They love making apartments. That's their answer to everything. But I have to give them credit. They at least got a little tiny bit of their finger on the pulse of the people. They're dedicating 20% to affordable housing. They actually use that word, affordable housing. Where is it in Fall River? Where is the talk from our council? Where is the talk from our mayor? about affordable housing for the people that are going to get bounced out in the street. There was just an article, and I got it on my phone, and I'm not going to go to my phone anymore because I got way too much stuff they send us. There was a major article about people not being able to afford their mortgages any longer and losing their houses due to this inflation, which will soon become a full-blown recession. But do they care in a city that, and they also made it a very clear point that this is a problem in cities like Fall River, cities that are in the lower end of the socioeconomic strata. But does anybody care that is in our government? That's why you got to bounce them all in 2 years if they don't get their heads out of their rectums.
Well, I'll tell you right now, 20% of the Superman building apartments will be 53
Yeah.
out of 268.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
but I mean, look, but at least they said the word, CJ.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not saying, look, I just said they're hypocrites, but at least they'll give a little bit of lip service to pretend, just like AC went to Amazon and stood on a picket line when it didn't matter because they didn't have a union yet.
well,
But now that they've actually formed a union in that facility and Bezos is using his billions of dollars to fight them, he doesn't want to unionize that place. It's one of the worst places in the world to work, and everybody knows it. He's a dictator, and he is going to fight them tooth and nail, and he's a billionaire. Just like they don't mess with China. Why? Because of all the money in China. None of the politicians mention it's Russia, 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 because Russia's got the economy of like New Hampshire. So, but nobody messes with China. It's the biggest economic power in the world. They'll say the United States is, but it isn't. China is. But the thing is, they don't mess with the rich people. Now it's an election year. You didn't see one politician supporting the union that won the election. Because now Bezos is trying to have a new election, and he's strong-arming everybody, and he's outlawed the word union on the Amazon page that they have for their employees. You can't even use the word union. So this is the hypocrisy of these politicians. She's been rich her whole life. She pretends that she cares for the poor. She never cared for the poor, and they're all like her. They're all like her. Remember, the lawyers, the bankers, the developers that live in Florida, the bankers who will not give you a loan because you're 3 cents short in your portfolio, you know, they don't really care. They pretend. And then they do these pseudo-altruistic things to pretend that they're really great guys. Look, I'm giving money to the poor, but I'm keeping like 98% of it and getting a triple benefit from that on the taxes. But look,
well, that's like all the market
it's
rate
crazy.
housing.
Yeah.
Like all the market rate housing they created for Fall River. They tried to offset some of it. We're going to create some affordable housing in this project. 130 units, 3.
Yeah.
3 affordable units. And there's 400 people trying to get one of those 3 units. Okay, that's not fair. That's not fair. And when you look at that and you see, and this is what Paul created. Paul's creating this. Paul's creating this every day. He's creating an environment where you cannot afford to live in Fall River. He's creating that environment. He's creating it by perpetuating the market rate housing, by not focusing on getting some people to develop affordable housing. Do you know that CPA money that we have, that we hate, that we can't stand?
That's right.
Do you know that they have money in the CPA account that hasn't been touched since the CPA has been created for affordable housing? Can you believe that?
Yes.
Someplace where I would not mind seeing it used.
My answer to that question is yes, I absolutely do believe it. But wouldn't it be amazing if when they built these units, that rather than have 3 units, why don't we look at the city's percentage? Take the city's percentage of, look at the household incomes and look at the people who have household incomes below what our city has, 43, which is only half of the state, which is a very large percentage of people in Fall River. Because remember, to get it up to 43, it meant we had a lot of people at the top end. That's why that elevated, because that's a median. People don't think that there are a lot of people in this city making 43, because there aren't. What's happened is there are a lot of people that went from 120 grand to 160 grand, thanks to politicians.
I was going to say they work for the city.
Yeah, they work. Yeah, and so that drove up the median average. But the reality is, why don't we say, look, 50, 60%, 70% of the people are living, below 40 grand, 40 grand or below. That's the median average. Let's take let's get an actual number. And why don't we have that percentage of market rate housing? You know why? Because no developer would build it. Because you would have to have 180 units of affordable housing and 2 units of market rate. Exactly. That's why they won't build it, because they don't care about anything but money.
That's it. And there's no question about it. And, this is the things we see. So, yes, I'm going to point the finger of blame at Paul, because Paul is supporting his developer friends. Who does he always talk about? His banker friends, his lawyer friends, and his developer friends.
He doesn't make dinner reservations, and we saw the text with the people from Corky Row. He makes them with his lawyer friends,
right,
and his banker friends, but that's the way it is. But look, you see what he's doing. It looks like he's running for a 3rd term. I have to say that. All these overtures, now he's talking over there in the school department side and in the school committee, he wants to give the people a tax break again. It's kind of like Biden. Let's print more money, throw them some money while we raise inflation so bad that the money we gave them is worth like 3 cents on a dollar. It's worthless. They still haven't figured out basic economics, that when you when you print money, you create more inflation because you haven't increased your gross domestic product. Well, or your gross national product. I mean, they don't understand my boy Milton Friedman must be spinning around like a top in his grave when he watches these idiots that are on TV now, and all the Muppets that he's got in his cabinet talking about economics, because they don't know anything.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting that you say that, because he's saying he wants to give us tax breaks, like by moving money from the school department to the city side. It's still Fall River taxes.
Of course.
It comes from Fall River taxes. He's not giving you a tax break. He's just spending your money in a different way. It's your money, and we can't have them account for it. Now, I have a problem with that as well, because he's going to transfer $4.2 million or $2.4 million, whatever it may be, over to cover transportation, which does not meet net school spending. But that's money that was in the school department for net school spending. So how are we meeting net school spending if we're transferring that money out of the net school spending? So this is why you cannot believe everything they say. You have to take things with a grain of salt, and you have to research this stuff, as we say always on this show. Don't take our word for it. Believe me, we find it. Just remember, you've got to keep an eye on what your politicians are doing. And don't just check off their name because they're a nice guy or they gave you a chow mein sandwich, because that's when you get headaches, and that's when you get problems like this. Yeah. And that's one of the big problems. Yeah. Monday, we will not have a show. Monday is a holiday. It is Patriots' Day, which means your taxes are not due until Tuesday. Normally, they would be due today, but today is Emancipation Day in Washington, D.C., and because of that, everyone gets an extension to the next business day, which is Monday, which for everyone in Massachusetts and Maine, Monday is a holiday, so it moves us to Tuesday. So you have until Tuesday to file your taxes. So just keep that in mind. Remember, politicians are running around to get signatures. Whether you support the guy or not, sign the nomination papers. It doesn't mean you're going to vote for them. It just says, I agree you should be on the ballot. I think everyone should be on the ballot, and the only signature they need is their own. And I think Chip feels the same way.
Absolutely. Everybody has the right to run in the United States. That's what makes the United States, and we might get some good ideas from some new people.
Exactly. I want to thank you all for watching. Have a happy Easter and a happy Passover. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Wednesday.